Hey there, hi there, ho there, good morning, or wherever you are. It could be evening, I'm not sure, but this is the Drones at Dawn podcast. I am Dawn Zoldi, your host. Inner Drone sponsors this. I am CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, and we are live. And I mention this because this podcast is for you. So please jump into the chat, give us your words of encouragement, ask your questions. That's why we're here. And we are rounding out our month of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so far, we've talked about neurodiversity, gender diversity, racial diversity, global diversity. And today, we're talking about corporate diversity. And with us, we have Mira Marquez. She is the product designer for, drumroll please, the amazing company called Skydio. If you haven't heard of Skydio, I'm not sure where you've been because they have been completely rocking it. And so, Mira, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me this morning. I'm really excited and good morning. I'm so happy to be talking about this topic today.
Well, I'll tell you, everybody out there, I met Mira, what was it, last year, right? You had called me. So backstory, Brendan Groves is your policy guy and Harvard Law grad. He used to be an Air Force JAG, which is what I also was in the military, and we knew each other. And we've kept in touch over the years. And he reached out to me and he said, hey, would you mind speaking with Mira Marquez from our organization? Because we are really focusing on gender inclusion and we would love to hear your viewpoint. I said, absolutely. And that's when we met, Mira, right? It was like last year. I feel like it was
last fall.
So first of all, let's back up. Tell us about yourself and how you wound up at Skydio.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably have a little bit more unconventional way than a good bit of my fellow coworkers. My background, I originally actually went to school for animation. I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design. Way back, I thought I would be working in the game industry for forever. However, that ended up not being the case. I ended up working in the video game industry as a 3D modeler before transitioning to product design, which is essentially designing interfaces and experiences for almost a decade. And then, company changes, company closures, having a more extensive network as I got older. I heard about an opportunity over at Skydio. They needed a product designer. And so I interviewed and transitioned to working with drones, which has been amazing and an adventure to say the least. Definitely some very unique challenges. Myself as a kid, I grew up on Air Force Base. So things regarding aviation and flight were always really of interest. However, I had terrible eyesight as a child, so the thought of becoming a pilot in the Air Force was quickly shut down. But I'm really happy to have been able to connect with a company at like Skydio as I got older and still find some way to kind of be integrated with aviation, and that really makes the kid in me really happy about that. But in regards of my work at Skydio, I came on board shortly a bit before we shipped our Skydio 2, and I've been basically helping to design our products ever since the Skydio 2, all of our accessories and our new set of products that's going to be coming out soon.
So what a small world is and the things that we have in common. It's so funny you say that about your eyesight because when I was going to join the military, we had to go through the military entrance processing center, and the Navy ran it, the one in Philadelphia, where I went, and they did the eye test on me, and they're like, "You have like zero depth perception. You will never be a pilot." And I was just like, but I will tell you, Mira, though, one of my goals this summer is to learn how to fly a drone and to become a pilot. So hold me to that, and I'm going to be in touch with you more about that later.
Yes.
I would love to be doing that with a Skydio drone, to be honest with you. So, so corporate diversity in the drone ecosystem. Tell us a little bit about Skydio and how it began and kind of where you guys are, because really over the past year, easily the last year, but even before that, you guys were growing, and it just seems like just exponentially growing over the past year.
Yeah, absolutely. Our presence over the past year has just intensified substantially. Skydio, with in regards to other drone companies around the world, there's other ones such as DJI, which have a substantial more hold on the market. However, we're becoming, and we are the leading drone manufacturer in the US. We were founded back in 2014, so still on the younger side, but we're making our presence known for sure. And the first consumer drone that Skydio launched was the R1, which was in 2018. So that's actually not too long ago. And that was widely regarded as basically a breakthrough for autonomous drones for consumers. And then, of course, we followed that up in 2019 with the Skydio 2, which is really helped us to grow our platform for commercial development significantly, along with all the accessories that come with it. And then from there, we've just been continually pushing the envelope of autonomous flight. And basically, that allows us to make the world a more productive, creative, and safe place, and really to continue to push in that direction as well.
Well, and I know you guys are linked into a number of these FAA, let's call them R&D efforts in North Carolina. You guys were on the cutting edge of getting the first statewide beyond visual line of sight approval. Autonomy's, I mean, it's the thing, right? For BV loss, that is what is going to get us there, because it's all about the tech. But yeah. I want to talk about corporate diversity, because that's what we're talking about here today. And that's actually how, like I said, we first connected. And I remember in that phone call, we were talking about this idea that, oftentimes when tech is designed, even drone tech, it's not, that human interface you were talking about, it's not necessarily designed for women. Even just the controllers and the size of hands and how that all works. And I know that's something you're looking into, but can you tell us a little bit about your diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives at Skydio?
Yeah, absolutely. Since the last time we chatted, we've been making some significant moves at Skydio to kind of help on the DEI side. One of the biggest things that we've done is we've created the social responsibility program. And this is where basically we use our products and our competencies as a company to engage with locally, nationally, and internationally with communities on humanitarian, wildlife conservation initiatives. A big thing that we're looking at is STEM education and for youth and for minorities. How do we kind of level that playing field there? And additionally, we want to bring awareness and inclusion and promote resources within Skydio, for all the change that we want to make in the world. We also have to look internally as well and see how do we continue to improve on ourselves internally. And ideally, ultimately, we don't want this to be a one-off or be a short-term thing by any means. We want to have a lasting impact for future generations, not only for us internally, but for our local communities and communities across the globe as well.
So what you talked about your social responsibility program, internal, external. So what are some of those initiatives? What have you launched in that arena?
So as far as within the social responsibility program, one of the recent things that we did was we launched what's called our Skydio Part 107 program, which we're super excited about. And that's an internal program where basically we support and guide the women at Skydio through getting their Part 107 license, which is really important. And we kicked off this program in early March with the Women's Fly Day. It was basically where we gathered all the Skydians. Skydians is one of the terms we like to, us ladies at Skydio like to refer to each other as, where we gathered all the ladies at Skydio and we went to the beach and we had basically a fly day where we learned about how to operate the drones, all the capabilities that they have. It really provide a safe, judgment-free zone where they were able to ask questions, not feel judged in any way about maybe not knowing something. And this group within the women at Skydio, this ranges anywhere from more senior female employees who have pretty extensive flying experience to, we also recently had a handful of new women who joined the company who this was the first time that they flew. So that was really, really great to be able to pair everyone up, get them kind of more on a level playing field to learn and feel comfortable about using the vehicles, which is awesome. And then of course, after that fly day, we set up basically a little bit of a classroom. We now have these weekly Part 107 courses that are taught by some of our internal employees. It's a 4-part course. We're a little over halfway through now. And then at the end of the Part 107 course, we're going to be taking our Part 107 test, which is going to be awesome. We're really excited about, and doing this all as a group and as a little community really helps to encourage everyone to continue and follow through and have a much higher success rate than maybe if we had all done this on our own. And, having this day, which was fantastic. It was so much better than, we could have imagined. We were fortunate enough to get basically local news coverage. We also got a shout out in the Women in Drones Spring e-magazine. And so it's just all around. We had a lot of support, not only internally, but externally, which is fantastic, and really be able to share that to the community here in the Bay Area that, Skydio is doing great things, not only for our employees, but we're doing great things for women and for the gender norm in regards to flying drones. So we're just overall really excited with how that program went. And of course, after the Skydians go through this Part 107 program, then we're going to be rolling it out to the rest of our employees. Because after we started talking about it and presenting it at the company, a lot of employees were like, hey, we want to get our Part 107 too. This is awesome. So we're going to be making that available for all of our other employees once the ladies get through it this session. And then, so that's just internally. And then externally, we've been working with a lot of great nonprofits, such as SMASH, and they have chapters across the nation, and they help to provide STEM education for youth minority groups and really guide them through high school into the college application process. And so we've been working with them, doing presentations and seeing other ways how we can support them to further and ensure the success of their program from us as a drone company. And so that's on a national scale. And then one of the international partnerships that we recently just announced was our partnership with We Robotics. And they support a growing network of independent and locally led knowledge hubs across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and beyond. And what they do is they build on existing expertise in drones, robotics, data, AI, and they try to really empower the local communities to use these technologies to basically elevate and continue to support their communities. And so we have donated multiple drones, and we're going to be working with some of these different flying labs to really see how our technology can help elevate the communities that they're in. So we're really excited about that one.
So these are all incredible initiatives at the corporate level, internally, externally. My guess is the people, and nobody's really chatting us up here. I would love to have someone at least do a shout out. That would be awesome. But my guess is people that are watching right now, either they've already bought into this idea that diversity is important, or perhaps they're just merely curious. So I want to kind of pivot to that question as to why you and Skydio believe diversity is so important in the drone ecosystem. And hold a second before you answer that, because we're talking about corporate diversity. And I'm just going to throw out a couple statistics here that might be surprising to some, but maybe not to others. Women consist, when we're talking about CEOs of companies, only 5%. If you're talking Fortune 500, this is as of 2019, so it's a little dated. And, again, the higher you go up, the percentages go up, but by no means close to, right, other genders. Executive, senior level managers, 26.5%, 21% corporate boards. And obviously at the bottom, we're still seeing 44.7% of the corporate workforce. So still less than half. And as a lawyer, just interesting, 30% general counsel in the Fortune 500 are women, and those that are those general counsel are paid an average of 39% less than their male counterparts. And so again, these are just statistics, that's reality. Those are the facts. Why does that matter? why does diversity matter in the corporate arena and particularly in the drone ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. Diversity is so important, not just in the drone ecosystem, but in overall basically any arena where decisions are made. Um, we see the statistics that you had mentioned. We see this across the board in the tech community and in the video game industry. When I worked in games, I was the only one, or maybe one of a handful of women at the studio who were developers, and it's really unfortunate. But there's so many things and so many other programs that are working. We're continually trying to push and make these things better. But diversity is so important in the ecosystem, and not just the drone ecosystem and the tech community, because it's about designing for the future. And the future, we want it to be as inclusive as possible, and that way there's a more level playing field. And as drones are becoming an immense part of the future, and the growing autonomy, especially, or growing economy around autonomous work, it's a little bit of a tongue twister, is that, if we don't have diversity in the ecosystem, we risk missing out on solutions because there's a lack of diverse thought and experiences. We risk designing and operating with higher biases. We risk creating products that are not as inclusive. And we've seen this happen. We've seen pitfalls happen with other cutting edge technologies, when diversity is not involved. One of the big issues the past couple of years that we've seen multiple studies on is basically where facial recognition technology, the algorithms for it, have been a bit more flawed and biased towards people of color, especially women of darker skin tones. And so that can actually have quite severe, effects, outcomes from when you have these types of biases with these algorithms. And additionally, there's still a component of leveling the field even when it comes to gender. The University of Virginia did a study back in 2011 and found that women were almost at 50% higher risk of serious injury, apologies, and a car accident than men. And this is because the testing was done on the average male physique without accountability for women. And yet women make up half the world's population, and it took over 40 years to get a female crash test dummy. And so you can only imagine what would have happened, or how many other women could have potentially been helped if this inclusion happened much earlier on in the development process. And we can't quite risk repeating the same mistakes that other technologies have made. So we want to be as diverse as and inclusive as possible, because we want to find all of the unknown factors that we don't know about. And to do that, we need as wide of a view as possible. And that includes having as many people with diverse experiences and backgrounds as possible, because they're going to be able to see things different than you and I. Everyone's life is unique. And so having a diverse set of eyes is just really important. And diversity is absolutely essential to help us cover all of these bases, so that way we don't repeat the same mistakes with other cutting edge technologies.
Absolutely. I think we tend, and I'll just say it's maybe my bias, your bias, we tend to kind of gravitate towards gender, but as we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, diversity is such a broad term, and all women are not the same. I mean, we had Hernanda White here last week from Black Girls Drone, and like she talked about being one of one. And when you think about women, and then you think about women of color, or you think about a woman and maybe she has a disability, or even a man with a disability, right? So I saw Women in Technology International is a really great group as well, and they put on a digital inclusion conference last year, towards the end of the year, and I was very fortunate to have attended that, and it was very eye-opening to me. I never really thought about this inclusivity in design, because when you think about technology and the idea that technology can really level the playing field. You can play drone soccer as a girl and as a boy. It doesn't matter how big your muscles are, right? Like this is what I'm saying. Like technology can be such a cross leveler, but it has to be, as you mentioned, designed. And One of the things you mentioned, the bias in artificial intelligence, it's only as good as the data sets you're putting into it. And what I heard was not the facial recognition. I actually heard there were hand dryers that if you put your hands under it, if you were white, it worked. If you were black, it didn't. And it was just a bias, built into the system. So look, it looks like we've got some folks jumping in. That's so awesome. So let's see, we've got someone, looks like Mark, saying thank you for your work in these areas. Please think about including Boy Scouts of America Scouts and Girl Scouts of America, as well as 4-H programs in your United States outreach, Mira. They'd love to see, Mark would love to see some normalization of drones in young children flowing into school and trade programs for all genders. And so great point, Mark. Absolutely. So much to be done. And so many groups out there doing this work besides Skydio, like Black Girls Drone and others. So I don't know if you wanted to kind of respond to that and some other groups that might be interested in working with Skydio or having a little bit more of STEM outreach.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Boy Scouts of America, Girl Scouts of America are both great organizations. And I definitely think that there's something that we could do there. And, we definitely want to see change for future generations and that to be a strong positive impact. I know our CEO has talked about this before, about the immense possibility for positive impact with drones. And if we want to continue changing and improving the future, it's like I had mentioned earlier, we want to make these things accessible and start leveling the playing field. And a big part of that too is focusing on education for children. There's so many things that unknowingly get embedded in our brains at such a young age. There's what is it called, the Brilliance Bias, that roughly by the ages of like 8 to 10, children typically have some idea that one gender is smarter than the other. We see this with school education, where I know I could speak for myself in that I know when I was in grade school, you see pictures of inventors and they're all white men. And so whether you consciously think about it or not, by that age, you slowly start getting this impression that maybe you're not as smart as these other people because you don't see representation in those fields. And so that's definitely, that early education is so vital and key to changing the narrative long term. And so it's not only exposure, but consistent exposure to these topics and, empowering women and young girls that they can do these things from an early age. It's really important.
You mentioned something that I want to dovetail on, and then we'll get to Scott Schofman's question because it's a great one. As always, I love Scott. He always dials in and he's always asking questions and giving encouragement. So thank you, Scott. You mentioned this idea that when you're at school and you're little and you look at the posters on the wall and you don't see someone that looks like you, that matters. And that's something Sharon Rossmark, CEO of Women in Drones, we always talk about this, if you can see me, you can be me. And she's such a great role model for so many folks. But, so for everybody out there, think about this. Super simple thing to do to help diversity, equity, and inclusion is look around. What are your artifacts? What images are on your website? What's on your posters? Because that matters. And I'll tell you, I've looked at I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of research, and I very rarely see women in drone imagery of, like I just did an article for Insight on Manned Systems magazine about Australia and Canadian BV loss, and featured Jackie Jumachik from Hover UAV in Australia. And she was also a Woman to Watch award recipient like I was, I think a year or two earlier than me. But that was a deliberate choice by me to do that. And so that I would commend to all of your attention, think about that. Look at your own website. Look around your company. What's hanging on the walls? What's on your brochures? Who are you picking as speakers? Who are you quoting when you quote somebody? That all matters. And those are super easy and little things you can do every single day. And so let's get to Scott's question. And by the way, for everybody out there, we're going to extend this a little bit, just by a couple minutes, because we realize people tend to dial in a little late and they miss things. So we're just going to go a little bit longer, end at about 8:40 or 10:40 Eastern instead of 10:30 today. Give us a little bit of time on the back end. But Scott, before I get to your question, I do want to say one thing, since we are on the topic of women in drones. I want to commend Skydio. So first of all, thank you for sponsoring, for number one, being a Women in Drones member and such a strong sponsor of Women in Drones. Number two, for being one of our first name sponsor for our Women to Watch Award this year. So if you guys didn't know, and right now I think Mike's dropping in the chat all the different links. Our Women to Watch Global Awards program, it's our 5th year anniversary. Skydio is sponsoring the Skydio Public Safety and Public Service Award. It's an individual award. And so I would ask that you all please nominate somebody. Tell me, look around, and surely you know of a woman or a team that is doing amazing things. And maybe it's not the Skydio Public Safety Public Service Award you nominate somebody. Maybe it's a different, the innovation team or the education team or education individual award. But let me tell you a little bit about the Skydio Safety and Service Award. What it does is recognizes an individual who serves the public in any capacity and epitomizes community involvement or betterment and service-oriented activities indicating commitment and sacrifice, including but not limited to humanitarian efforts like Drones for Good, public policy, military, federal, law enforcement, public safety efforts. So much can go into this. This is not, the Law Enforcement Person of the Year award necessarily. I purposely wrote this to embrace military members, to embrace people like attorneys that are writing policy for the public in this sector that is making a difference. So if you know anybody, please nominate. And once again, Mira, thank you and Skydio for sponsoring this. I know that your CEO, Adam Bry, this was important to him. And I don't know if you wanted to comment on that before we move on to Scott's question.
Absolutely. And Adam's talked about this, I think, almost just about in all of his interviews. Skydio was founded on the belief that drones will have a massive positive impact on the world. And autonomy goes with that. The ability for drones to perform, really complex tasks on its own helps to ensure that pilots, allows them to focus on their jobs that they're doing and not so much on the piloting aspect of it. And I know from Adam that seeing more women involved is also really important. And, it's great that we're able to support this Public Safety and Service Award, and we're really excited about it as well.
Well, we're excited to see you at Interdrone and some of the Skydio teammates there. I think Brendan just agreed to be on one of our panels for BVLOS, so that's going to be an awesome panel. But the big reveal for the Women to Watch Awards will occur at Interdrone, like it does every year. So registration is open. Please sign up. We would love to see you. This is going to be, pretty sure this is going to be the first live event, and it's going to be amazing. And I cannot wait to get out of my basement and talking to people and seeing everybody in Dallas, Texas, 10 to 12 August. But Scott's question is actually perfect to follow on to what you just said, Mira, because his question is, how has your view towards inclusive diversity influenced specific product design choices? And do you have any favorite or good examples of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something, we, especially as product designers, you want to keep in mind that not only are you trying to design this for a specific either client or user, or in cases where you're selling products to the general public, you want it to be as inclusive as possible and accessible as possible. And, sometimes you have to, you have to do your due diligence as a product designer and do your research, and that also involves a lot of user testing as well. Are there things that other people see and experience that you don't? And so one of a recent success story there, I should say, is with our new enterprise controller. And when we were developing it, one of the big things that myself that I often encounter, and also with other women, is sometimes controllers are not the most ergonomic or comfortable to be held in your hands, especially for women. We have a little bit smaller hands on average. So as we were designing our new controller, that was something that we really wanted to keep in mind, is not only is this thing ergonomic, can I reach all the buttons comfortably? Does it feel good to actually sit in my hands for, a period of time, 20, 30 minutes longer? And so that was something that we really focused on, and did our research and did lots of user testing with this, have lots of not only different women hold it, feel it, try it, fly with it, but also just a huge range of not only our internal employees as well, but also as we go out and our employees do demos with other companies and other vendors, really kind of getting feedback on the controller. So one of the things that I love about it is it is comfortable to hold, especially for me, who is somebody has smaller hands. It's ergonomic. I'm able to reach all the buttons. I don't get hand strain when I'm trying to move the joysticks and reach for the gimbal or different shoulder buttons or other buttons that are involved on it, or trying to reach for the screen. The weight of it too is really important. It's not super heavy, but it's got enough weight to it to where I feel like I'm actually holding on something, and I'm not going to, if I'm not careful, fling it because it's so light. So there's a really good sense of weight with it as well. And it just all around feels really good, which is, we're really happy about how it came out.
It's funny you mentioned the thumb controls. Make sure you include old people in your group, because I am old, and the arthritis sets in your thumb joints, and you don't think about that if you're young and you're always doing your thing all day long. But if you have a person that's of advanced age, that's, you can only do that for so long, and is it difficult to push and things like that. So that's a perfect example. Thank you for saying that. We have a couple other comments here. So I cannot read the name properly because it's a little blurry on my screen, but we have a UAS instructor at a community college on the line, trying to collaborate with local high schools and middle schools to develop, it's UAS Mike is his name. Local high schools, middle schools develop a drone camp this summer, looking for advice. Mike, you need to email me. I want to connect you with Drone Soccer, some other people. So it's Dawn, DAWN, at p3techconsulting.com. I would be absolutely happy to talk to you about that and what a summer camp could look like. We also had someone chime in and say, Ada Lovelace should be in the every lineup of inventors in every school, everywhere. And I will tell you that I had to look her up. And Ada Lovelace was Countess Lovelace she was born in 1815, died young in 1852. She was an English mathematician and writer, known for her work on Charles Babbage's proposed mechanical general purpose computer called the analytical engine. And she was the first to recognize that the machine had applications beyond pure calculation, and to have published the first algorithm intended to be carried out by such a machine. So there you go. I learned something today. Thank you, whoever that was. And again, I'm sorry I cannot see my tiny print there, but that's exactly a great point. I mean, look, I'm old, like I said. I grew up in the 1970s in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I was blessed to have amazing parents. And it was a time, if any of you are with me from that era, and I know Mira's much younger than me, but it was that time where Marlo Thomas had that album, Free to Be You and Me. And it was really focused on gender inclusivity, and that you can do anything you want, and I think I'm an example of that, because I had amazing parents that told me that and said, hey, you can be whatever you want. And I actually bought into that and believed it, even though I didn't see examples, even though I didn't know Ada Lovelace. And certainly when I went to law school, there weren't a ton of women in my class. But here I am, and here you are, Mira. And so this is great. I just have a couple more questions. We're running short on time. I think we're at T-5 at this point. But let me ask you this with the last couple of minutes. How can our listeners, we talked about little things they can do, like checking out their own artifacts, maybe looking at their own company and hiring practices, but how can our listeners engage or help in some of the things that you all are doing to increase diversity, equity, inclusion, Mira?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned earlier, we've kicked off this social responsibility program, and a part of that is looking at ways we can engage locally, nationally, and internationally. And so we'd love to hear from the audience, any organizations that they know of that are trying to change the narrative when it comes to aviation, drones, and STEM education for youth, minorities, and women. We have hopefully we'll get this sent over to folks. We have an outreach form for folks to fill out, and what that'll do is that'll send that organization, that information to us, and we'll be able to reach out and contact and go from there. And that's just a Google form. So if we could get that sent out to folks, that would be awesome. And so we highly encourage you to fill that form out, get that information over. We would love to help out any way that we can with a lot of different organizations or initiatives to really kind of help change this narrative. So I highly encourage our listeners to fill that form out, reach out to us so that we could get your information, and we'll be in touch to see what we could do to help either with a partnership or just overall support for your program.
Well, that's terrific, and we'll figure out a way. This usually goes live on video. It's out there right now, right? So we're live streaming to YouTube, Twitch, all kinds of places, LinkedIn. And so it's recorded, and Interdrone usually does a push on Thursday as well to let everybody know, hey, if you missed this, come back and look. So we'll make sure, Mira, that we get that Google Doc out to folks through Interdrone. So thank you for doing that. And thank you so much for your time. This month has been, for me, it's been quite a journey. For those that have been with me, I thank you. I'm pretty sure my camera just went off, so I'm pretty sure you can also still hear me. Having technical difficulties, but it's been an interesting month, and we are pivoting for the month of April to focus on security and safety. So we hope that you will join us next week when we have the illustrious Luke Fox from White Fox Defense Technologies, who's going to talk to us about his products and counter UAS and some of the threats they're seeing, and why counter UAS and threats is so important. So we're doing a hard right pivot, talking about going from diversity right to security and safety. So it's never a dull moment here on the Drones at Dawn podcast. But thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much, Mira. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on today. And thank you, everybody out there, for your comments and questions and for your support. So speaking of support, if you go, I do have a Patreon page if you all are interested. I'm going to talk to Mira for a couple more minutes here. That will be up behind my Patreon paywall. We talk about her wisdom, and so that's patrons only. So please consider joining that community. I also have a blog behind that and post up at least twice a week on everything from just what's going on in the commercial industry to vertiports to national security to leadership. So anyway, that's it for now. That's a wrap. And everybody have a wonderful week out here. All right, I'm back.
Hello.
I have